Hello everyone, this is Mr. 13 Things. Here to discuss a little bit doing what many do, and that's to find someone out on the web creating with open source resources and then using some of the same resources. I give a little bit of a caveat here as we will not be using a TI-85 or a TI-86 emulator. We will be using a TI-83 calculator emulator. Emulating, if we would, Sal Khan out at Khan Academy, who is working to provide a world-class education to anyone, anywhere, which means those students with a great classroom instructor will do better than that. What is that? I don't know, a solar system class education? That said, I am using right now Camtasia, which is not free, but Cam Studio is free as my screen capture. I am using Smoothdraw, which is what a Sal Khan uses, and I am using a TI-83 emulator, which if bought as a physical unit would be around $120, maybe down to $40 or $50 on eBay, but in this case the emulator is free. And we're just going to go through a demonstration here very quickly that we can then tie perhaps into some Khan Academy type quiz if we want. So what you'll see here is I've got a cursor showing, and I'm going to just talk about what, if I write here, as I go into this bit here, you'll see as I clicked into the Smoothdraw, then the TI-83 Plus calculator got buried. But we're going to talk about why the TI-83 for not just math, but entry programming. So TI calculators have been around a long time, HP before then, and if I click back here, you'll see the TI-83 come up. Pretty powerful calculator. Many people think it has too many buttons, and maybe it does, and it's got nested data structures, nested input mode. Maybe it does, but the reality is it is relatively freely accessible to all who have access to a Windows machine through this calculator. After one gets involved in dealing with programming, like, and watch here's when I click on this, it's going to, once again, since I'm in here, if I say on, it turns it on, but as soon as I go over here, this is going to get lost, so that's, don't worry about that. I come over here. Why the TI-83 for not just math, but entry programming? And I think it basically comes down to what it uses for the assign statement. What it uses for the assign statement. And if you're not familiar with the assign statement is, in programming, it's something that takes this value, let's say B, and forces it into A. Right? So this takes the value of B and forces it into A. So the great value, or that's most typical, the way it would look most typically in programming language would be like this. B equals 5, A equals B, and then you would get, therefore, A equals 5. So that equals statement here is used in this case as an assign statement. And that can get confusing, I presume, for students who are learning that there's no way that 5 equals 6 or something like that. So the fact that it uses a different symbol, it uses something called stow, or that symbol there, for the assign statement. Makes it a reasonably, it's one of the reasons I think that even that many of us live with the TI Basic for entry level programming, even though students are out on Scratch and in Python and in JavaScript or whatever they're doing in their Legos, C++. What you'll also see come about, in many programs you have this being the assign statement, this being the conditional if statement, right? The assign and the if statement. So that becomes relatively standard through time. So in other words, A double equals B is if A equals B, and there's actually in the end also sometimes a triple. So that can perhaps become problematic. So what it uses the assign, why TI-83 for not just math but entry-level program? It's because of what it uses for the assign statement. So we're going to take a look at that real quick here. And I'm going to do an edit, cut. And mostly I'm demonstrating here now as I click on that, the calculator, I'm turning it on. The assign statement is actually in this calculator, it is in the stow. And so I'll do an example here. I'm going to go for stow it in or store it into alpha A. So now 4 is stored into A. Now we all know about memory and calculators and the like, and maybe we'll put 5 stow into alpha B, right? And even now I think we can say 6 stow into alpha C. Go back here, hit enter. Syntax error, quit. Somehow it didn't work because it did C+, so I'll try it again. 6 stow into alpha C. Right now, this means that if I do alpha A plus alpha B, it should give us 9. Notice that it's not using the equal sign for the assign. It is not using the equal sign for the assign. So that's one reason, I guess, that some of us stick with programming, and we'll see what that looks like now in a simple program. And then we'll end with that. So we're going to go, again, students will be working in Scratch. They'll be working in Ruby. They'll be working in Python. It's amazing what students who start playing around in gaming do quickly. But I'm going to go to Program here. I'm going to make a new program. Create a new one. I'm going to give it the letter AAA. And now I've got a program here. And we'll see what that looks like now. That same basic program looks like when you're doing a program. Series of steps. So I'm going to say alpha. I'm sorry, I'm going to do clear. I'm going to do 9 stow to alpha A, and maybe 19 stow to alpha B. And now I can do something like this, alpha B minus alpha A stow to alpha C, and you could go on from there. When I hit here second quit and now run program and run that program, you see that it went through the mathematics thereof. So that's why the TI-83, for not just for math but for entry-level programming, it's not the best programming language, but it uses a different symbol for the assign statement. What else does it do badly, let's say? And I'm going to show you again as I click into here. I lose what I had, which is fine. Other thing that it does, the TI-83 uses a 1 for an index. Uses a 1 for the base index in a list. There are a few programs that do it like this, but most of them, use a 0 for the base index, Now, I'm going to show this and run out of time, but I'm going to go through now and just kind of show you very quickly what that looks like. Once again, clicking to to bring the up, I am going to go into a list, and I'm just going to say, okay, 5, I'll do it better than that. I'll do 0, comma, 1, comma, 2, comma, 3. I'm closing the squigglies. Stow into second list 1. So now we have stored in a list variable, and that becomes important. The value is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now if we do second list 1 and then open parentheses, I think, of 0, it doesn't know what to think. Quit. However, I do second list 1, open parentheses, and I could be wrong here, 1. It knows in the first position, which is the base position, the value is 0. That becomes important purely to understand that learning to manage lists and matrices as well as single values, whether they're real or integer, is an important base skill that students are going to need to or want to or perhaps delve into as soon as you empower them onto a computer for learning. The list structure is quite important, and what we've shown here in the end is hopefully later on you can figure out a way that you can write on top of this. So that's the bad part. When it's a functioning calculator, as soon as you try to write on top of it, you lose the ability. But there is a way to bring in a picture and do some kind of quizzes and things like that. So with that said, the few things that I might have pointed out in this video would have been, where is the alpha key? What key is used to force a value into another variable? And how do you input list 1? What's the keystroke for list 1? And that would be the second in list 1. I'll show you again. Second list 1, those are the yellow keys basically. Or second list 2. There's other ways, of course. Hit clear. So those would be 3 questions that maybe we could quiz in a Khan Academy type quiz where you would pull a dot to the correct places. Mostly what I'm showing here is that you do have, or students should have access, if they have a Windows-based machine, to a free calculator emulator. And I don't know what best practice is, but a lot of people end up using a TI-83 or TI-84, starting at around 7th grade from what I've seen around. I know they use them in the classroom where my kids are and where my nephews were. They actually had them, each student had theirs. The cost curve changes when it's a free emulator put on a laptop provided by a local great insurance company. So thanks for listening. This is just a demo. Don't hold me to any of the great board work. If you want, you can pick holes in this. That's great. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.